Hey guys, well this is a little bit of a different type of project. Is working on this old thing. I was doing some changing out some fuel line. This is all pieced together with like 950 pieces of different stuff. So I was going to change out the fuel line and gonna drain the tank on this thing. And so as soon as I started turning on this drain plug, I don't know what kind of goop they put on it, but that drain plug did not come out. And so what ended up happening is that the boss that's crimped on there or soldered or who knows what started spinning. So it just was a constant leak. And so that was just very upsetting. So of course, you know, I had almost a full tank of gas, and so that was just a pain in the butt. So I ended up getting, you know, fuel tanks or my gas cans, and I was just letting it drip into the gas can, and it took 2 of them, but it turns out it was a little more than I had space for, so it poured all over the floor overnight. But anyway, so now the project for today is to get this tank fixed up. Now I have a trick that I've used back in the, I don't want to date myself. I have something I want to show you guys and hopefully it works. It has nothing to do with any heat, any sparks, and it's not JB Weld, so stick around. We'll see it get fixed up. All right, so we got the tank out of there, and they were telling me that this had an issue with the sending unit leaking for a while, and they sent it to a guy, and it turns out he put epoxy all over this thing, so that's not good. The reason I say is because we're having issues with the fuel cutting off, fuel pressure cutting off of it, and we're trying to diagnose it by determining whether it was fuel line, collapse line, or maybe this was sucking the little filter sock back together. And so now I got to bust through this, and hopefully I can get it to where it seals up well. But it turns out, did you hear that? That thing fell right out, so it's in there. So now I got to open it anyway to get in there. So that kind of stinks. But let me start chipping away at this epoxy and seeing if I can open that up. And hopefully I can seal it good enough, make it last. Don't want to have to take this thing down again. All right, let's get that taken apart. Looks to be okay. I wonder if that folded up. Just crazy. Look at that. Now what am I going to do with this junk? Okay, well, let me clean this up off camera, and hopefully I can get all this epoxy junk off of this rubber, because this is not going to be good. I'll be so careful not to tear it. Maybe I can make one out of felt or cork. I mean, sorry, or leather. Yeah, maybe I can make one out of leather. That might work. Go find an old glove, soak it up with grease. That might work better. All right, we'll see. Okay, let's see if we can fish this out. All right, well, we got this piece out, and it looks like this sits in a shoulder underneath this lip here. However, it only looks as if the solder, maybe they did it from the inside, just barely penetrated, because it didn't even go down to this shoulder here. And if you look this way, right in here, let me show you. If you can look in there, it doesn't look like there's any solder that penetrated around this perimeter here. So the only thing that was holding it was just this slight little bit of solder from the inside. So that way, yeah, in this way. So let's clean all that stuff off. I'll figure out a way to pull this back through, and then we'll try and get that welded up. Alright, well, that wasn't so bad. Okay, now we can clean that off. That looks pretty clean. All right, next step. All right, so after some wrestling, I determined that this gasket is just gonna be no good, so we're gonna ditch it. What are we gonna do to fill that place? Well, as with everything in the old days, what worked good? Leather. So we'll cut out the gasket in leather, smear it up with some little bit of grease, stick it on there, and it'll work great. Okay, so now the question becomes, how am I going to weld this back on to the bottom side of the tank? Right in here. Should I weld around the perimeter? Just very light tacks, maybe TIG weld? No, not only no, heck no. This is too dangerous. I don't ever weld on gas tanks. It's too risky. So what did they do in the old days? They used one of these. Not sure if you guys remember these. These are old soldering irons. They come in different sizes. You can buy these at the antique stores. A lot of people don't know what they're for. It's just solid chunks of copper. I have different sizes for different things, and these work great. So just basically it'll transfer the heat through touch. You know, touch it on there, and of course it's not going to be easy, right? But it'll transfer the heat enough to melt some solder in there. So that's pretty exciting. Now the tricky part is going to be to fish this guy from bottom side in, but that's another thing I got to deal with at that point. Okay, so man, I don't know. I guess I may try this little guy first. I don't think it'll hold enough heat, but I may go ahead and just clean these edges up with a wire wheel or a flap disc of sorts and tin it, meaning put some solder on there so that I can transfer the solder onto that piece there, and it should work pretty good. I'm going to do this inside the shop because it's too windy out here and it'll get cooled off. So let me dress them all up, and clean them up, put some tin on them. All right, next step. So we got those cleaned up a bit, those soldering irons. Now the next step is to clean this area here. It's gonna be a bit of a challenge to clean that area. So what I was gonna use is chainsaw file just to stretch the areas in there. Now there will be a little bit of shavings, right? But ultimately the filter will catch that, so that'll be fine. I will be rinsing it out again afterwards to assist with that. But we'll just need to make sure that it's slightly clean so I can get some good contact for the solder to stick to. So that's the next step. Okay, so I'm just gonna stand this thing in front of the diesel heater for now. I could sit here with a propane weed burner or a torch, rosebud to kind of heat it up, but this will work. I just let it sit there quite a few minutes and let it soak up the heat while I tend to other things. So get that warmed up. All right, let's keep working. One of the next things is to feed this guy in from the bottom and try and hold it up there. So just gonna use a piece of wire and just fish it through here, through the opening where the sending unit goes, and try and hold it up in this direction. That should work. Excellent, so that looks like it'll work. I'm thinking I may want to tin this area here, go ahead and put some type of solder on it, So I'm gonna go stand it in front of the heater and see if I can just melt some in there. Yeah, I don't know if you can see that really closely, but I got some solder on there, and so now I'll fish it through that hole, and they'll at least have a coating of solder on there, so it should have a nice when I get the two pieces hot, they would just wet together really easily. Let me brush this up a little bit though. Okay, I pulled the iron off here, and all this happens very fast. Just put a lot of heat into that right there. It's gonna be kind of tricky. Okay, so hopefully that's wet enough, or tinned enough, sorry. Let's try to see if we can slide that piece in there. Okay, take two. So now I got it to stick in there, at least to hold in its position. So this got cooled off a little fast because I think I took it away too fast from the heat. So let me heat this up and then I'll be back. Looks like it'll work. Alright, so one of the things I got to consider is I don't want to make the holes too much bigger than this. Actually, I may want to make them smaller than this so that they thread in there and create their own gasket. So I got a hole punch and I'm just going to kind of match it up best I can. Probably that one. It's a little small and I'll probably have to thread it through the leather, but on the benefit, on the plus side, it'll actually hold the gasket in place. I'm undecided. This is a little too smooth. I'm undecided if I should score it up or scratch it up with a wire brush. This side gonna be fine, and I'm gonna actually put a coating of grease on here, so it'll soak up into the leather a little bit. I may have, I should have probably done it beforehand. I don't actually know. This is only the second time I use leather as a gasket. First time it worked great, so I figured this time it'll work as well. But I think I may scratch that with a wire brush or something just to get it some texture for the grease to soak up in there. Looks good. Just like that. It's directional. Put a little more grease on it when its time comes. Let it soak up in there. And let's set it aside. You pulling up on it?
Pulling up on it.
Yeah, yeah. She's going a little bit. I made more of a mess on the outside. That's okay. I can't see. Let me grab my flashlight. Looks like a mess, but I think it's in there. Cleaned it off. Cool. Looks like that'll do it. Okay, let it cool off, brush it up, see what happens. Alright, so it looks like that'll do it. Looks like it got on there pretty good. Now you wonder, why do I put one of those? Oh, why not, right? It holds the pressure for water, so it should hold for fuel. That way I can drain it a little easier. So if anything else comes up, unless somebody wants to steal some fuel. But either way, I won't tell anybody if you don't tell anybody. So everything's looking good. We're just gonna slap this thing under there and be done with it, because this thing's been a pain in the neck most of the day. And this here turned out all right. You know, it's solder. It should hold well. So hope you guys learned something. And you know, if you guys ever find one of those old soldering irons, that's what they're used for, repairing those. So really easy to do, easy work. One last thing I forgot to tell you. I ended up using my torch to heat the soldering iron, because that little diesel heater didn't get it hot enough. So thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.